everybody, Nancy Burke here, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's technique that I'd like to share with you is how I created this seaweed and coral effect on the bottom of this page. And to show you how I created that, I'm going to show an example on a 6x6 sheet of cardstock rather than a full 12x12, just so I can show you in a small area and then you can recreate it on whatever size project you want to. I'm also going to be using smooth cardstock, and the reason why I'm using smooth cardstock is because when I add my liquid colors down, I want them to be able to move and flow across the page. So if I used a pattern, or I'm sorry, if I used a textured cardstock, the liquid wouldn't be able to move as easily. So that's why I'm using the smooth cardstock. And I'm also going to be using Heidi Swapp Color Shines. These come in a variety of colors. They've got a little bit of a iridescent color to them. And as you can see, they've got just that little bit of shine to them that I really like. And who doesn't like glitter anyway? So let's start by using the color coral, very fitting for this. And I need to make sure that this is mixed up fairly well. So rather than using the spray tip, I'm going to be removing the lid completely and sort of using this as almost like a dropper. I'm going to just start adding a puddle of this liquid color. Now I could use a dropper, but then you'd have to clean out the dropper between colors, or you'd have to have a dropper for every color, which I don't. So what I did was I added my little puddle of color, and then I turned my cardstock perpendicular to my surface and just tap it on the surface. And what that does is that creates movement for my liquid colors. So that creates almost like fingers of coral. So I can add a little more over here, a blob. And we're going to see where this goes. So rather than using my left hand, I'm going to use my right hand. Okay, so I like what that did. I like how it went this direction, and because I used my right hand to tap rather than my left hand, I got two different directions. So let's add another piece of coral over here. Again, just making a blob. Oh, see, I've got a blob up here. I can actually work with that and make it even bigger. So rather than looking at it as a mistake, I can use it to my advantage and create another piece of coral. So I'm going to use my right hand and then switch to my left. And as you can see, I've got a little bit going in either direction. Let's add some over here so that it goes this direction. And let's see, I tapped with, I don't remember what hand I tapped with. Okay, so I've got going different directions. And I have a little blob up here. I'll address that later as to what you can do to cover things like that up. But right now I'm not going to worry about it. Let's just keep making little bits of coral. I'm going to use this color. It's called Peach. This is actually a good color for coral because it's like that deeper red color, and it actually reminds me of Ariel from Little Mermaid. It reminds me of her hair. So it's kind of that reddish orange color. And also happens to be the color of some of the coral that's in our oceans. Okay, so I want to make sure that this stays very liquidy, so that's why I keep adding more, is because it seems to be drying out a little quicker. Some of these colors are a little drier than others, so they're not moving as much. Okay, I like how that went that direction, but I want to connect this coral here so it doesn't look like it's just floating in the air. So let's add a blob between the two. Switching to my right hand, Okay, so see how it kind of moved up there and connected the two, so it looks like it's one piece of coral. Okay, so let's switch to another color. Let's use, this is called Blush. Again, making sure these are mixed really well. That just helps distribute the iridescent color throughout. Because iridescent, it's actually little tiny pieces of glitter that will settle to the bottom, like microscopic pieces of glitter. Okay. Use my right hand for this. Okay, kind of went that direction, but that's okay. Let's add one over here. And we'll tap with the left hand, see what direction we can get it to go. That actually didn't go very far, so let's add a little bit more. Some of these I've had for quite a while, so they're starting to dry out, and they don't want to, the color doesn't want to move as much or have as good of a flow. Okay, that's a good one. See how that kind of went sort of swirling up the top? I like that. So let's go ahead and stop with these colors. Let's add a little bit of some yellow. Now, when I was working with this yellow earlier, it didn't want to flow up the page very well, so I might need to create a bigger blob. Okay, it actually did move up the page, but it skipped and went clear up here, so we're just going to leave that. Again, I can address that later. I'll show you some ideas to fix things like that. So I've got my my coral curling up through there. Let's do one little bit over here. Make sure this stays good and wet so it has some good flow to it. And I'm going to use my left hand. Okay, I like that. So we've got some pinks and some oranges. Let's use, okay, I've actually got a darker pink. Let's make a piece over here. A piece of coral. Maybe it's got some multiple fingers. Whoa, dear. Okay, so I splashed and I created kind of a big mess. So before I do anything, I want to blot that and pick that color up so that I don't, first of all, I get it all over my hand and get it all over my project. So things like that are going to happen. So we just deal with them as they happen. Okay, so back to my little blob of pink coral here. I'm going to create a finger going this direction. And just tapping. Okay, so I've got some coral running up this side. So I like how that looks with these colors. Now I want to add maybe a little bit of blue. I don't want to go too crazy with the blue because this is supposed to be underwater, and I'm going to add some blue effect to this anyway. Okay, hopefully those stayed wet enough that I can get some movement. Okay, yeah, a little bit here. Okay, so I like how this looks. Let's go ahead and make some seaweed. Okay, so I've got my green, and to create seaweed, I want to create blobs, but they're going to be long, thin blobs. I guess blobs isn't really the best word to use. I don't know what else to use besides blob, because that's kind of what it is. Okay. I want my seaweed to be a little bit taller than my coral, so we're just going to extend this a little bit. Okay, I like how that looks. Went up a little bit higher. So let's add Let's add another bit of seaweed over on this side. Okay, that's good and liquidy, so hopefully that will have a lot of movement in it. I really like how that looks, how it skipped a little bit. So what I can do is I can just connect it so it looks like it's, all these pieces are supposed to be attached. Let's add, I think we need some more green over here. So let's add some green. Make some more seaweed. Okay. Oh dear, I do not do this very good with my right hand. Okay, so I've got some green seaweed here. I think that I need to connect this a little bit. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, I've got some seaweed and some coral. Now, one more thing I want to do is add a little bit of a watery effect, and how I'm going to do that is with this glimmer mist. Now, this is an older glimmer mist. I've had this forever, so any sort of a watery blue mist that you happen to have is going to be good to use. So I'm just going to spray this towards the bottom to add kind of a light watery effect so that you get the idea, oh, it's blue, it's underwater. Okay, so we've done that. And then another thing I can do is take this lid off and add some little splashes. And these kind of create the look of bubbles. Okay, I really like how that looks. So let's address this little blob right here. So if this were on a scrapbook page, I would either strategically place a photograph or another element or something that I could cover that up with. See? And so you can't see it. You have no idea that it was even there. Or you could use, because this is a water scene, you could add fish, like a die cut of a fish, a sticker, or a mermaid, anything to sort of cover up anything that you don't like that's there. I'm not too worried about this yellow streak and this pink streak because they could just be, you know, things floating in the water, which is fine. Another thing I can do is to cover up this bottom edge because this just looks kind of strange with these just kind of floating there. So I'm going to take some brownish, tannish colored cardstock if I can find where I put it. Okay, maybe not. All right, I'll just grab a new sheet. No big deal. Here we go. Okay. So I've got this piece here, and I can just put this straight across the bottom, or if I want, I can cut along the edge. Let's start at this edge. And just make some sand underneath the waves there. Put a little bit of glue along the bottom. Stick this down. Okay. That's kind of interesting on the back. Okay. So here I've got my little underwater scene. And we're going to put that there, cover that up. We're going to pretend that that's a picture or of Ariel or somebody, because this is our little undersea adventure. So some of the other things I can add are things like I've got this little wooden seahorse. And if I really wanted to, I could cover up that little pink streak with the seahorse there. I've got a little blue seahorse. I could add him there, and he really covers up that quite well. Now, if I've got something bigger that I want to cover up that blob, I could do that, but I personally don't like starfish sort of floating in the water. I think they look better if they're along the bottom. So we'll do something like that. Okay, so as you can see, this is also starting to curl. So what I can do is I can place this, once I make sure that all my colors are dry, I can place this under a book to flatten it. Anytime you use a very liquidy type of a medium, you're gonna get some curling with your paper. So you can just, again, flatten this out, put it under some books, and you're done. So I really like how this turned out. And there you go. That is my technique for creating seaweed and coral on a page like this. So thanks for watching. If you like my videos, please subscribe. I will be adding content every week, adding new techniques, ideas, and things that I think might be fun to try. So please subscribe and have a good day.